What's up, Taiwan? I'm Liao with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. In just a few days, Taiwan is set to remember the victims of decades of government oppression with White Terror Memorial Day. But a bill recently passed by opposition lawmakers appears to exclude the day from a list of important national observations. Liao reports on how it's stirring debate over how Taiwan treats its checkered past.
Calls for victims of Taiwan's authoritarian past to be remembered properly.
删除记忆日，删除记忆日，删不去百孔历史，删不去百孔历史。
Civil rights groups and ruling party lawmakers take aim at Taiwan's main opposition parties, who, they say, recently removed a public memorial day on May 19th. Marking the beginning of the White Terror period, 4 decades from 1949, when the nationalist government targeted those opposing their power, killing thousands of people and imprisoning more than 100,000.
他们的目的是想要删除、抹除台湾人的历史记忆哦。他们希望说，我们的后代子孙都不要记得哦，最好不要记得什么叫白色恐怖的历史。 也都不要记得。
For many victims of government oppression, justice has still not been delivered. Taiwan's Democratic Progressive Party, or DPP, government has been pursuing what's known as transitional justice, exonerating past political prisoners, redistributing ill-gotten gains, and giving millions of US dollars in compensation. And, in 2024, creating a new day to commemorate the victims of the period. But this day, White Terror Memorial Day, was not included in a recent public holiday and Memorial Day bill passed by this legislature, which, significantly, is in the hands of 2 main opposition parties, the Kuomintang or KMT and the Taiwan People's Party. It's the latest issue to ignite deep partisan politics in the country. The KMT, the party descended from the nationalist government behind the White Terror, says it is upholding the memory of that period, and that when they were in office, they established a public holiday to mark a government crackdown, acknowledging the past.
这显示国民党一向重视台湾过去的历史价值哦，在这次的讨论中，民主进步党放弃了自身的价值，而在修法中撤回提案，国民党表达非常的遗憾。
The ruling party rejects these claims and has been criticising the KMT-led public holiday bill.
我们反对仓促的上路，反对仓促的立法，甚至是在表决的前一刻才看到手上的修正动议。那甚至是我们在委员会里面讨论到的，包括我提议的婚姻平权的纪念日、白色恐怖的纪念日，还有 1996总统直选的国家主权日，全部都没有被放在最后的修正版本。那我也认为非常的遗憾。
Bad blood between the 2 major political parties has reached new heights since the DPP lost to the legislature. And one of the many things they fundamentally disagree on is how to face up to the country's violent past.
For the second half of it, there are more controversy about. At the same time, the country began to develop quite swiftly. But on the other hand, there was still continuing oppression. And that is a quite mixed thing. And so it complicates people's narratives, people's collective memories.
Taiwan will mark White Terror Memorial Day in just a few days, perhaps for the last time as an official commemoration. The country is still reckoning with one of the darkest chapters in its history. And now, as political divisions deepen, the question of how to remember that history has become a renewed source of contention. Andy Xue and Liao for TaiwanPlus.
Opposition lawmakers have passed amendments that allow for a 20-year extension of a nuclear reactor's lifespan. The government says Taiwan's last working reactor at the Ma'anshan nuclear power plant will be decommissioned on May 17th, according to law. But the changes would make it possible for it to be reactivated in the future. That would require the ruling Democratic Progressive Party to give its approval for safety checks and inspections before the plant is granted a renewal license. The DPP has opposed nuclear power over safety concerns and is currently on track to complete its goal of making Taiwan nuclear-free by 2025. For more on the amendments to extend nuclear power in Taiwan, Issy Wells spoke with Ye Zhongguang, distinguished professor from National Tsinghua University.
Taiwan's last nuclear reactor will still be decommissioned later this week, but after the passing of these amendments, what actually needs to happen for it to come back online again?
I think the opposition party has already opened a door for the government to return to nuclear energy. But it is not mandatory for the government to continue the use of nuclear energy. It would actually depend upon the decision by President Liao. He has to give definite answers to the people that if he is really going for a nuclear-free homeland forever, or he may change his mind in the future. So it's not a technical issue. It is a political issue.
Now, people who oppose nuclear power say opposition lawmakers rushed through those changes without properly considering safety and nuclear waste concerns. Are those concerns valid?
That's why there is a process of safety check and system testing. We will not restart the nuclear power plant until we are able to make sure it would be safe during future operation. There are already processes to deal with nuclear waste. So it's not really a problem. But besides, we are actually following the international approach for dealing with nuclear waste. We are not doing this alone.
And why are opposition lawmakers pushing for a nuclear revival?
They want to make sure Taiwan is going to have additional clean electricity for the future. And it must be also sufficient. And the other reason is, of course, the Taiwan Power Company has been facing very serious financial deficit in the past 3-4 years. And with the cheap nuclear energy to be continuously adopted for the future, the income of Taiwan Power Company will be increased, definitely. And I personally agree with them on these two issues because these two issues have been troubling Taiwan for quite a few years.
That was National Tsinghua University distinguished professor Ye Zhongguang. Donald Trump has met with Syria's President Ahmad al-Sharaa in Saudi Arabia just one day after the U.S. president announced that his country will lift years-long sanctions on Syria. Tiffany Huang reports.
Cheers in Damascus as people celebrate what they hope marks the start of a new era. On Tuesday, U.S. President Donald Trump announced plans to lift sanctions on Syria after a meeting with Saudi Arabia's crown prince. These sanctions, targeting the government of former Syrian leader Bashar al-Assad, had isolated the country for over a decade.
I thank Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, King Salman, and all the Saudi people for this moment of chivalry. Their support has been with us from the day we began the revolution until now. A million thanks.
Trump said the decision was made due to a recent change of leadership in the civil war-torn country. In December 2024, current Syrian President Ahmed al-Sharaa led an offensive that overthrew the Assad regime.
There is a new government that will hopefully succeed in stabilizing the country and keeping peace. That's what we want to see in Syria. I will be ordering the cessation of sanctions against Syria in order to give them a chance at greatness.
The decision marks a major shift in U.S. Middle East policy and signals a move towards normalizing relations with Syria's new government, a step welcomed by the United Nations.
It was important for us to see relief on sanctions on Syria, to help the reconstruction of Syria, to help the Syrian people recover from more than a decade of conflict, a decade of underinvestment.
It comes during Trump's first state visit of his second term, a tour of Gulf states to discuss investment and foreign policy, where other major deals are being made, including a $142 billion arms deal between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia, the largest defense sales agreement in history, according to the White House. It includes plans for state-of-the-art weapons and services for Air Force advancement and air and missile defense. Trump is also expected to meet Syria's new president in Saudi Arabia on Wednesday. Still, some observers are urging caution.
You don't want to go whole hog in and invest in any particular regime, because even though they've stayed for 6 months, there's no guarantee that they're going to continue beyond 6 months. There's so much sort of at stake and so much up in the air that things can change in really unpredictable ways.
Trump will head to Qatar and the UAE next, where leaders are expected to discuss tech investment, manufacturing, and military cooperation, further shifting dynamics in the Middle East. Patrick Chen and Tiffany Huang for TaiwanPlus.
Beyond weapons, the U.S. and Saudi Arabia have agreed to hundreds of billions of dollars in new tech and AI investments. That includes an agreement for Saudi Arabia to buy hundreds of thousands of AI chips from Nvidia. CEO Jensen Huang was among a number of tech bosses in Trump's entourage in Riyadh. But next week he'll be in Taiwan, and rumors are swirling he will make a big announcement. Chris Gorn brings us this report from Nvidia's Taipei office.
I'm here at what is currently U.S. chip designer Nvidia's Taipei office, but it may not be that way for long. Local media is reporting that CEO Jensen Huang may announce a new expanded office location in Taiwan next week at Computex Taipei, one of the world's largest tech trade shows. Huang arrives in Taiwan bringing good news, lots of new business. He's coming straight from the Middle East, where huge new tech deals were announced. We're talking tens, even hundreds of billions of US dollars worth of new investments in AI infrastructure in Saudi Arabia and other countries. Some of the biggest names in tech, including Huang, joined President Trump on his trip and met with the Saudi Crown Prince. So what's in these deals? Well, Nvidia says they will sell hundreds of thousands of their highest-end chips to Saudi Arabia. There's also U.S. chip designer AMD, $10 billion in AI infrastructure for Saudi company Huang. More deals with OpenAI, Qualcomm, Google, the list goes on. And the moves reflect a broader strategy from the Gulf countries to transition from the world's reservoir of oil to its reservoir of computing power. Now, although there were no Taiwanese company representatives in Riyadh, Taiwan may be the silent winner in these deals. And that's because nearly all of the equipment at the center of these deals is manufactured in Taiwan. Nvidia's GPUs, AMD's AI accelerators, CPUs in Qualcomm servers, all made by Taiwan chip giant TSMC. And it goes further than that. Taiwan not only makes 90% of the most advanced chips, but also 90% of the data center servers that those chips end up in. Taiwanese companies like Foxconn, Quanta, and Wistron will likely assemble servers that will end up in Riyadh and Abu Dhabi. And that's why companies like Nvidia may need to expand their operations in Taiwan, starting with new office space. John Su, Scott Huang, and Chris Gorin in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's Foxconn, the world's largest electronics maker, has reported a 91% increase in quarterly profits, beating forecasts. The company, known for making products such as Apple's iPhone, says its Q1 performance was due to high demand for AI servers. But it says U.S. tariffs could bring more challenges. Foxconn also announced last week that it would manufacture electric vehicles for Japanese carmaker Mitsubishi, the first major contract for its EV subsidiary Foxconn. It says the new car will enter the Australia and New Zealand markets in the second half of 2026. And thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. As always, you can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, check out this exhibition in Rome featuring 200 handcrafted pieces by the Italian fashion duo Dolce & Gabbana. I'm Liao. Take care and see you next time.